This is A Color Purple by Alice Walker. Celie, who's the main character, she actually narrates these, and it takes the form of letters that she writes either to God or to her sister or to whoever she writes these letters to. And it's a confusing read because it uses the tongue and the language of that time period. It's really trying to embody the character and gives it a lot more realism. So just a brief summary. The novel's about Celie's tragic life. She initially doesn't enjoy life at all, and throughout most of the novel you will see that she usually doesn't enjoy life. She lives only to survive. And along the way she meets some very empowering women that convince her and show her really that life is meant for truly living, truly laughing, and truly loving. So I really love how this novel touches many different topics. It touches upon the topic of racism at certain parts of the novel, especially in Sophia's encounter with the mayor and his family. It touches slightly on the topic of slavery and the attitude of ignorance and lack of responsibility. Continuing on, the novel touches upon the topic of manipulation and loss. This is best seen when Celie's pa takes advantage of her mother to manipulate her and take her wealth. However, the main topic of this novel seems to be on the patriarchy and women. Throughout the entire novel, we see very many empowering women who are the opposite of what Celie is, and they teach her how to become more empowering. So feminism is apparent in Shrug's defiance of Mr. and Sophia's persistent struggle not to obey or yield to Harpo. The damage that the patriarchy causes is shown through Celie's relationship with Mr. and her father. This patriarchy is super toxic and it really breaks Celie's life, and it's probably one of the main reasons why her life is so tragic. The novel also does a really good job touching on the topic of homosexuality and religion, and the idea that God is presented through whitewashed ways disrupts the way that people find God. So this is shown when Celie thinks that God is a white man, but white people are cruel to the colored and men treat her badly. And so this kind of makes Celie lose her faith a little bit. She finds herself in this really deep ditch where God, the person she'd always turn to, is suddenly someone that she can't turn to. But really, it's most impactful when she finds her way back, and Shrug explains this to her to help her understand. And Shrug tells her that God is an it, not really a him or a her or really a person at all. So he's not human in the sense that we know humans. He's just a being. And basically Shrug tells her that essentially God just wants to share the good that he created with humans. We learn about different types of love. Honest love is exemplified through Samuel and Corinne's marriage, and sometimes through Sophia and Harpo's marriage, even though they do have a rougher path. However, the novel does make the statement that honest love is not true love. Sometimes we are meant to be with more than one person. For example, although Samuel was incredibly faithful to Corinne, he does end up later marrying Nettie, which tries to bend the idea that sometimes loving honestly is not the same as true love. You can love more than one person in your life. True love is exemplified a couple times throughout the novel through Sophia and Harpo, through Adam and Tashi, Odessa and Jack. As we notice through this that all three of them require understanding and sacrifice and compromise. Harpo had to sacrifice his pride to get Sophia back. He had to let go of the system that he's known to get Sophia back. He learned how to respect women, and he let go of his tough ideal of what it means to be a man. Adam has to learn to respect Tashi's decisions and her culture and her identity. He has to learn to accept her for the mistakes that she makes. Jack and Odessa's gentleness towards one another is probably the best example of a marriage. Jack and Odessa's gentleness and respect towards one another kind of outlines the idea that it is important to understand and compromise. And Albert loves Shrug his entire life, but at the same time, he knows that they can't be together. It's just the way that life takes you. You can love someone, but not meant to be with them. Sometimes it doesn't work out, and that's just the way life is. We learn about broken love and broken marriage. Celie and Mr. both love Shrug, and together they demonstrate that if you love someone, you will be able to let them go. And Celie writes, "Who am I to tell her who to love? My job, just to love her good and true myself." Loving someone means respecting them, their person, their rights, their identity, their individuality. You can't cage and hold onto someone you truly love if they don't want to be held. We live life the way that we need to live in order to feel that love. And there's so many different types. So there's not one answer. There's not one path to truly finding happiness. There's not one answer to being happy. And if that's what makes you happy, it's not about pleasing the world. It's about making yourself happy. So if that's the choice that you decide to make, then that's the choice you decide to make. One of the most amazing things about this novel that I actually really loved, and I actually really love characters who demonstrate this. They demonstrate growth as the novel moves forward. And we see that mostly in Celie, Harpo, and Mr. So we see these people grow and they learn from their mistakes. It has the theme that understanding can bring us together with our worst enemies. Prejudice exists in every society against those who look different or act differently. One of the statements in the book is super powerful about prejudice. It says, however, the only way to stop making the serpent is for everybody to accept everybody else as a child of God or one mother's children, no matter what they look like or how they act. Shrug teaches readers as well as other characters that it's important to live our lives and be happy and to be true to ourselves no matter what happens. We gotta learn how to be true to what makes us happy and what makes us us, despite everything in the world standing against us. The novel is really about learning to find peace where we are, learning to be content with ourselves. The Color Purple urges people to find happiness through imperfections. Now, would I recommend this? I would definitely recommend this to older readers. It's very insightful. It deals with so many topics all across the board. It's a wonderful read. The characters are amazing. The plot is enticing. It's just wonderful. However, I would caution against younger readers reading this. There are some mature content and some very intense scenes, and I do not recommend this for younger readers.